Hello everybody. This is LT Limelight, and this is my audio review for the first MLP fanfic that I've read, sort of cover to cover, I guess in a sense. Bride of Discord by Disney Fanatic. I think first thing that I want to say is that I really love the story. I think the writing is really great. Some high points for me was I like that it is a parallel to Beauty and the Beast, but not so much as in it's essentially just a bona fide version of the story. It has concepts that are akin to the story of Beauty and the Beast, but there's enough differentiation in it to set it apart as its own story. I also really love the way that Discord and Fluttershy's relationship developed. I mean, in the beginning of the fanfic, she was having nightmares about him, and then by the time the fanfic ended, she was marrying him, and it didn't feel forced, and it didn't feel contrived, and it just felt like those 18 chapters just had such a natural progression of their relationship that I really enjoyed. So that was a high point for me. I also liked the use of Zecora as a mentor for both Discord and Fluttershy. I thought that was great. I also couldn't help but get choked up a little at the idea of Twilight considering going to Discord to be his wife to take responsibility for the mess that apparently she had a hand in creating, as she was left to rule Equestria after Discord, like after the princesses supposedly went to Saddle Arabia. And I thought it was just a really mature moment, and one that I think would definitely happen in the show. Um, Another high point for me was a lot of I like the spin on the inner monologue kind of thing that you see in a lot of TV shows and a lot of stories where a character would essentially think to themselves. But since it's Discord we're talking about, he is literally talking to himself. Like, he's looking in the mirror, and I really like the gag of his shoulder angel and shoulder devil, as well as his reflection sort of coming to life and trying to convince them, like, you're such a wuss, you're such a pushover, you're such a sap, I can't believe you're falling for this wimpy Pegasus. And it's just something that had me giggling all the way through when I read it. And um before I get any farther in this review, I have to bring up something very important. The thing that I wanted to bring up was my first experience with this fanfic was not in its written form. I actually saw a it was sort of a recommended video from me on YouTube, the sort of audio dramatic reading sort of thing that Disney Fanatic had apparently been putting together. Dramatic pause. Putting together, and that was my first encounter with the fanfic. I think the illustrations for it are pretty decent. Some of them are, like, I have to admit, are kind of crude crayon drawings, but still, like, a hell of a lot better than anything I could draw. um, so I don't have the right to criticize their work, but I could still tell that there was a lot of effort put into them, and it really did give the story a feel of, like, being an actual episode. I also love the actress who plays Fluttershy. I think her Fluttershy is, like, dead on. Same thing with the actor who plays Discord. I don't know who he is, but his Discord is pretty spot on too. Back to the actual first impression, though. Um, like I said, the Discord shenanigans with him actually talking to his own reflection and his shoulder and angel devils that he produces himself, Discord being the kind of guy who sleeps on the ceiling. I'm like, yes, this is exactly the kind of stuff that Discord would do. So that's another high point of the story for me. Not just Discord, but Disney Fanatic, you obviously have a very deep understanding of a good chunk of the characters in this story, and bravo for that, bravo. Fluttershy acted completely in character. Discord acted completely in character. Twilight, Zecora, um, but then, you know, there's also a couple of things with this fanfic that I do have a slight problem with. It's certainly not going to hurt my opinion of the story too much. It's definitely a story that I'll be coming back to often, again and again and again. But one of the things that really rubbed me the wrong way about this fanfic was the portrayal of Rarity. Like I said, Disney Fanatic, you have a very good understanding, a very deep understanding of how these characters work, how they think, and how they would react to situations. Oh, I also love Rainbow Dash being overprotective of Fluttershy, by the way. um, uh, but back to Rarity, I feel like her portrayal was a little bit too snobbish, a little too elitist, and a little too selfish in my opinion. Um I feel like this Rarity has absolutely no idea that Spike has a crush on her, or she is aware of it and she's just sort of brushing it off as a speed bump into on the way to getting into Fancy Pants' non-existent pants. So yeah, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way because next to Twilight, Rarity is a character that I relate to immensely. So I'm not a big fan of her portrayal in this fanfic. Also, I feel like a lot of these side pairings that are in this fanfic could have stood to sort of not be there. The Cheerilee and Big Macintosh, I ship them not very hard, but I ship them moderately. And having them indirectly play a role in the way that this fanfic played out, I thought was a really cool idea. But the whole Rarity X Fancy Pants, Spike X Applejack was just sort of, ugh. I really just didn't care for that. I thought it was a little distracting, and those are definitely the parts of the story that I could just skip. Also, Rainbow X Soren happens almost completely off screen. So I'm not really invested in that one either. I don't hate it. It just feels sort of tacked on, in my opinion. But to be fair, the most development and the most focus was kept where it should have been on Fluttershy and Discord, and the development of their relationship. I don't know what it is, because there was this one part where they were going on this date, and again, like, more nods to Beauty and the Beast, hooray. And during the date, Discord kind of makes a really ballsy move in asking Fluttershy, after they have a nice dinner and a nice little waltz, if it's okay if he can kiss her, and Fluttershy pretty much agrees to it because of the arrangement that's been made. It's sort of like, well, Fluttershy, I guess, is thinking, like, well, I've already promised to marry this guy. I'm not really going to get a chance to kiss any pony else. So, I guess, if he wants to take a crack at just going to Smooch City, why not? And so they do kiss, and I don't know what it is about that scene, but reading it, every time I read that scene, it's the scene that I come back to the most. And every time I read that scene, for some reason, like when I just read the parts where their lips connect and Discord's eyes sort of just like fly open and he gets heart shapes in his eyes, like, I can see that. I can see it. It didn't really need to be given too much detail, like you didn't have to describe the color of them or anything like that, and yet I could see that scene playing out in an episode of My Little Pony, and it just felt so organic and just so real, and it gives me just, it makes my heart flutter, pun, every time I read it. So I think that's probably my favorite part of the whole fanfic. Also, near the end, where Discord is apparently getting cold feet, finally going through with his marriage of Fluttershy, and Applejack is the one who gets him off his ass and says that, like, I can't believe that you're doing this to Fluttershy. Like, I thought, like, I can tell that you two really do love each other, unless, I was wrong and you really don't love Fluttershy, and the Discord's like, now you listen here, AJ. I love that pony more than anyone in the entire world. And then AJ's like, well, why don't you prove it? And then my favorite Discord line in the entire fanfic, watch out, baby, your new hubby's coming. My Discord is terrible. But, well, I haven't had time to practice. Like, maybe I could get better at them. I don't know. But, anyway, those are two of my favorite parts in the whole fanfic. Back to what I was saying earlier about... What? About the scene sort of playing out very organically and very naturally with the Fluttercord Fluttercord date. Jesus, I completely lost my train of thought. What was I gonna say? Oh,